are listening to the Good Girl Podcast. I am your host, Cameo King. The Good Girl Podcast is a podcast that's redefining what it means to be good through uncomfortable truths. I call those uncomfortable truths. I call those confessions. So every week we have a person on sharing a confession with the goal of healing, with the goal of freedom, and with the goal of walking in your authenticity. I don't know what that was. Last week I did y'all know that one. Last week I did that one, or a couple weeks ago. So I need another one. Maybe in a past life I was an entertainer, maybe, or a hype woman, maybe. But did y'all hear last week's podcast though? Who child? I got phone calls, I got text, I got screenshots. Last week's podcast was Confessions of a Former F-Boy, and there were some people that enjoyed it. There were some people who didn't enjoy it. I think it's pretty safe to say the group of people who didn't enjoy it were of the male persuasion. My mom used to say, hit dog gon' holler. So no. I don't want to say that. I'll say this. I think it is difficult, and it can be trying to see your full self, right? And the not so pretty parts of yourself, the ugly parts of your soul, and that still need healing. And I think that's what that podcast may have done for men. So if you are a man and you know what you done, I just encourage you to go back and listen to the last podcast, and even share it with your homeboys. Share it with women too, because I think it was also healing for some women to kind of see the other side of things when you just kind of left hanging. But nonetheless, I do have, listen, I feel like I'm coming at the fellas hard. But I do have another confession from a man again, and it is still very much connected to your identity. So fellas, buckle up. Don't write me, because if you write me and you're foul, I will hurt your feelings, right? I'm still working through that. This is my art form, and I'm sensitive about it. So if you are not already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Girl Podcast. We can be found on wherever you find your podcast. Also, we're on Instagram, Twitter, and the book. Last but certainly not least, we are in the running to become Detroit's favorite podcast. Sounds like I was about to say Detroit's next top model, right? Are you modeling my? Knock yourself out. You want to let your hair down? Knock yourself out. But Detroit's favorite podcast by the Detroit Choice Awards, but you have to vote. So we have to be in the top 3. And so just head to the link in our bio and you can just vote for us. You can vote for us multiple times a day, multiple times an hour, multiple times a minute. When you just roll over and just Cameo is on your mind. Because I know that's how it is, right? Just always on my mind. Just hit that link in our bio and click vote. So let's learn about the person who's sharing the podcast this week. Listen up. Emory Lawrence is a burgeoning actor from Detroit.
Acting is my passion because I can be completely transparent.
He studied acting at a film academy in Cape Town, South Africa.
The art form is genuinely being instinctive. So you have a vessel, and you have the power to not only impact people that are watching you, but also impact yourself and those around you in that production.
Some of his most recent work includes the films The Price of Love, Not Left in Vegas, and a web series called I Vow.
And to cherish, till death do us part.
I want to get a divorce. We can go our separate ways, and then I can be happy. Where did I go wrong? At what point did you decide that you didn't want me?
Emory says that while he completely and utterly enjoys acting, the art form also goes deeper to touch his core.
To me, taking on certain roles, it feels like therapy. So it may be something that I hadn't faced in my own life or have chosen to even acknowledge in my own life. And a lot of stuff comes out of characters, and I'm able to express that way. So sometimes I could be somewhat reserved about my, emotions or feelings, and I just kind of keep it to myself. But in a character, it's to articulate.
Emory currently resides in Los Angeles, where he's working on a couple of projects set to be released soon. Now that we know a little bit more about Emory, let's get to his confession. I encourage us all to listen with an open heart. I always encourage us to do that. But so much can be said, one, about a person being vulnerable, about a person being transparent. But furthermore, we can learn so much about the world and learn so much about ourselves. So let's hop to it. Here we go. All right, Emory. So I'm so excited to have you on the Good Girl podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now that the people know you a little bit, know a little bit about you and your passions, I think I think I'm always excited about people's confessions, but it really hits me differently when I feel like your confession or what you're going to share is really going to move folks, when it's going to move like their spirit and how they see the world and even how they see themselves. And especially, we typically don't have men on, but I think I think your confession is important. And I think once healing happens from one person, it's a ripple effect. And so it can't help but to help the next. Anyway, let me stop talking. I'm going to toss it over to you as I typically do, Emory. So what is your confession?
The
big
no. So my confession is that everything that I was taught growing up about what a man should be was not true. And I feel like it was a lie. And I say that it was a lie because I'm 40 years old and I'm still unlearning a lot of those things that were instilled in me.
Yeah, that's a big one. How did you come to this confession? How did you come to this conclusion?
Because I saw the way, I just saw reality. So it's like you're told one thing, but then you see how certain things play out in front of you or inside of you. So I always like to say I speak for myself, because I'm like, I ain't trying to break the guy code and be like, this is how we really feel. Nah, this is how I feel as Emory. But I've saw the pattern and also spoke with other men that feel the same way. So I think that it was something that, you see the reality where it's like, I hear what you're saying, but this is the way things are operating. So how are those two, how can we conjoin those two? You can't.
What was one of the realities that kind of hit you like in your heart, or was just kind of like, whoa, what whomever told me?
One of the realities was probably the emotional side of things, where, growing up, you have to be tough. You should never cry. You should never show weakness. You should always be unaffected, by what the world is, and you just always keep going. And being an adult now, like I said, I'm 40, and I've learned that bottling all that stuff up and trying to act as if nothing is bothering you only causes a bigger issue, like as an adult. So as you get older and you still have held on to all this stuff that you could never let go because of what the world says you should be, as a man, like, I think your problems get way bigger.
Do you think there was a time, and I know that's probably one of many examples of the things that you were taught. Do you think there was a time when this, I'll call it like the false narrative or a lie, the lie benefited you? Or where it was kind of looking up like, yep, this is how I'm supposed to act. This is working for me. Was there ever a point in time when that was the case for you?
Yeah. I mean, that was a point as far as growing up, where growing up single mother and just my sister living in the home. Yeah, I took that badge of honor as far as like being the man in the house, in a sense, even though I was still a boy and had a lot of boyish ways. But I took that and I saw the effect of being tough, of course, protecting my younger sister, and feeling like I was protecting the household. So even out in the world, when you interact with other males or just people in general, Yeah, I saw a benefit to slapping the shit out of somebody that disrespected me, and then the other men that were around or boys were kind of like, all right, he ain't to be messed with. But in my mind, I was kind of like, that shit was wrong as hell. He really didn't do that much to me, but he did it in front of them, so I had to react that way.
It's interesting you share that because I'm thinking about how society even supports some of these narratives. Because
Yeah,
so when you say like big brother, little sister, when you talk about growing up in a single parent household, that was somewhat a part of my narrative. And also like being the little sister, it's like everybody knew you
yeah,
don't mess with
yeah.
like don't mess with Warren's little sister. Like
Mhm.
that's Warren's little, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'm Warren's little sister. That
Yeah.
was and so I get that too in terms of I guess how that narrative is somewhat fed and you're rewarded for that
Yeah.
because your family is protected. It's like
And
ain't
you
nobody
looking
gonna
up
mess.
to him, so he like, yeah, I got something. Yeah, this is my purpose here.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So when did you run into a brick wall when you was like, this ain't it?
Every relationship I got into, uh, specifically, first girlfriend, and I've only had 3 girlfriends, and I married one. Well, we're divorced now, but yeah, college. So, first real girlfriend in college. What I learned at 19, 20 years old, is that shit went too far. Like I was demanding my respect because I thought that's what I should be doing. I demand my respect from this woman because she's my girl. But that brick wall came when the only emotion that I would express was anger. So I wasn't able to articulate. So she didn't understand how I felt sometimes, which made me even more angry. So my only reaction was to become assertive. Now I'm being a little more uh, demonstrative in an angry way, where it's like I'm expressing my emotions, but you gonna understand what the fuck I'm talking about today, and it's demanding that respect and seeing those reactions. That don't make somebody love you more. That's making somebody look at you like, yo, like you're a little dangerous, or I don't want to deal with you on an emotional level. And that was probably the introduction of like, why do my relationships fail? It's because I'm fighting in the ring with the world all day, and then I come home thinking that I have a place to relax and recharge in my apartment or around my girlfriend or whoever it was. And I felt like I had to box them as well, just to feel like, all right, whether it's I've been told what to do at work by a professor in college, now when I come home, I feel like I should be able to dictate what the fuck I want to do in my life. And that shit just backfired naturally.
Did you know, like, were you consciously aware that that's what you were doing in terms of demanding respect? Like, because you may have had a bad day at work or because the professor disrespected you, that you knew you were going to come home and you wanted this place of peace, this place of solace, and you knew you were seeking that out from her.
It's hard to decipher because as I've gotten older, I've digested and kind of broke down and compartmentalized different aspects. And where I think that came from was growing up and it's gonna sound twisted, but the beauty in growing up with the responsibility of being a man of the house, but then you still grow up under a single woman's direction, it almost amplifies, and that shit just it starts to grow as far as like your own ego, because you're given this responsibility, but then your mother is telling you what to do all day, and you really can't do what you want to do unless she gives you the heads up. So growing up, I got to do what my mother tells me to do out of respect, and that's my mother. Fine, you pay the bills, I live under your roof, I respect that, I'm grateful. But coming out of that, as I got older, I'm like, I'd be damned if a woman tell me what I'm gonna do, because I've experienced it at a large portion of my life. So coming out of it, it's like, nah, like I'll run my own life. I don't need no woman telling me what to do, because I didn't agree with a lot of the decisions that my mother made for me, because you don't know what a man is supposed to be. You don't know how to raise a man. You know, it's that's why I said it gets twisted, because it's like I guess that anger was pulled from the household, where it's like, hey, don't tell me, you know, to girlfriends, don't tell me what I need to do. I know what I need to do, and I'll let you know if I need your help. You know, and that's just it was like taking it to the 20th degree when it didn't even have to go there, but it was almost like I was standing up for myself.
That's such an interesting connection. Never thought about it like that. Just never thought about the connection of the of how in a sense, I know in adolescent, a young boy, someone's still forming and growing, and hormones going everywhere, and you kind of smelling yourself, you're feeling yourself. You've already been told that you're the man of the house, and I just think of even like teen girls, like you think you know everything, and once you get that taste of freedom, you want that same narrative confirmed.
Yeah.
And when it's not, it's like all hell breaks loose.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we had the conversation beforehand, I think you called this emotional articulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the ability to articulate your emotions. Why do you believe it took, you were 18, 19, and now you're 40. Why do you believe it took 20 years for you to understand this emotional articulation piece? And I say that because I feel like as women, as girls, that we are taught from the beginning about our emotions and about our feelings. And even if you weren't, somewhere along the line, that heart is cracked open. Or you have some experiences where you begin to shift or listen a little bit. Not to say you didn't listen, but I just think women evolve. I think our society is set up and it cultivates women evolving differently. So I'm just curious about your experience. And if you think it took a long time, or if you think 20 years is a long time for that evolution.
No, I don't think it's a long time, because I guess it could be considered a long time because I didn't pass the test over and over and over and over again. But I think for my personality alone, I learned best from experience. So when I got to a point where I wanted to articulate my emotions, I was told I was complaining, or it'll be okay, you're good. And then I stopped talking about the shit. So it became even more callous. So it's like, I feel like I had blocked certain outlets for my emotions, and then it just blew up.
Who would you say was a part of like that blocking?
Dang, I know my mother gonna listen to this. My mother, she wasn't very emotionally available. So it was always kind of like a logical black and white way of looking at things, and going to her expressing emotions, I don't think she knew how to process them. So I think her way of dealing with it was more so just brushing the shit under the rug and kind of like, it'll be okay. Don't worry. I think you're thinking too much, and it's like, well, it ain't going away. But after a while, you just kind of figure out how to just not talk about stuff.
That's I felt like when you shared that was a difficult share.
I know, because I know she gonna listen to it.
Your mama gonna call you Emory. I don't know how your mama say your name, Emory. But it makes me think about our people, and the things we've had to endure and how we have learned to get through, and how we got to where we are. It's like, I'm not concerned about your emotions. If I just want to make sure you're home. I want to make sure your body is home. You talked about a couple other things outside of emotional articulation. You talked about at least two other things that you were taught as a man that you do not believe to be true today. What was the second one?
Well, for one, spirituality. So being a spiritual leader, and not even just in marriages, but in relationships as well. I think the whole perspective spiritually for a man is you supposed to figure the shit out and then teach everybody else. And it's like, what do I teach somebody while I'm figuring it out? Do I get a pass, or am I considered spiritually novice or weak, spiritually weak, and I'm not a leader. Like I don't that those type of scenarios have always annoyed me in a sense because I'm only responsible for myself, just like our parents. It's like they could teach us everything they wanted to, and if we wanted to go worship the devil, that's just what you gonna do about it, you know?
So how did that show up? Like, how did that show up in your marriage when someone, the pastor, your premarital counseling, or while you may have been in a rough spot, how did the impracticality of some of religious guidelines, how did that negatively impact, these standards for being a man?
I think it all came to the surface probably during that first year. And I think there was a point where I just kind of noticed, I just started to notice that pattern of everything falls on the man. You answer to God for your household. If your wife is spiritually uh, drifting or not on the same page, it's your job to enlighten her, reel her back in, go to God and ask for direction, and your household should run smoothly. Or your household should run smoothly because you're spiritually grounded. And when I wasn't, I'm just like, well, I'm not even spiritually grounded. So how am I supposed to lead, her in the same path? And who's to say that she has to follow me? Like, I'm not looking for a child. I wanted a partner. So it's like we can work together. But I don't know. I started to learn that it's too overwhelming to literally think like I got to answer for her in my household. That shit took me back to childhood where it's like, oh, you the man of the house. You got all these responsibilities that I didn't ask for. And I'm cool with stepping up to the plate, but y'all not even giving me nothing to work with. Cause it's like, if she do something, how does that affect me? Like that's on her. You know what I mean?
So the third thing you mentioned, Emory, was how success was defined for men. And I think that's huge. I think it's so huge. And I'm curious as to, when you talk about success as a man, can you tell me about how you believe it's viewed or how you viewed it versus how it should really be viewed?
I think broadly as it's viewed by society, by women, by other men. 'Cause I mean, that's all it is. Like between the men, it's straight competition. That's it. Like niggas don't care about it, who could crack an egg the fastest. Like niggas just compete, and that's fine. But I'm way past that point. Like I done played sports and I've competed. I don't care to compete with anybody but myself. But accolades, money, and realistically how desired you are. I think that's really what society bases success off of. So I'll start with accolades. Accolades, how much money you make, how many promotions you done got, how far along with these titles in your career you've gotten, and how much shit you run, or awards and all that type of stuff. And how many people you take care of. Two, what did I say two of? I said accolades.
I'll tell you what I'm hearing in my head. Money, power, respect. What you need in life. Money, power, respect. And so maybe it was one of those.
Hey, that's it though. That's it, and it's those accolades, and how desired or how admired you are. So it's like when other people like you, then there must be something good about you. So people kind of bandwagon and gravitate toward that. Like, yo, like look at him, man. He the VP now, and this motherfucker could be ready to blow his brains out every night doing some shit that he don't want to do. But you know what? He's stuck. He got to pay all them bills, take care of everybody around him. I tried it. I tried corporate America, and I I felt like, oh, you trying to be an actor? What? You were a extra or a background actor on CSI. Cool. You literally just walked down the hallway, nobody saw your face. You need to get a real career. So I went into corporate sales. The whole time I'm growing and I am getting attention. People like, damn, like you came up quick, and it's like people see your lifestyle change. Of course, you get more money, you got to get the better place. Then you got to get a nicer car. People see all that shit. This is all the stuff you wear. It's like an accessory on a suit. That's my pocket square. I got a tie on now. Hey, I'm good. I'm about to get some shoes next. I'm about to be complete. But trying that out and what I saw in it was, it's like society forces you to choose either your family or money, power, and respect. But you can have both, but I'll get to that. But it continued to build on a false foundation that was already cracking, and the shit came tumbling down because the way I view it now is you can have money, power, and respect. It depends on how you define each of those things. So having a lot of money don't make you wealthy or rich if you still are not at peace within yourself. So if you're only making the money, eventually you're going to resent everything that you are trying to make all this money for. And the power, who the fuck wants to rule over other human beings? That's some arrogant shit, and it's like, you're not God. And looking at it now, that power actually comes from within. You actually gain more power when you go inward because you figure out what your assignment is to help other people. The more you help other people, the further you go in life. You start to connect with your purpose more. And the respect, it's inevitable. That comes naturally. And it's in a different way. It's not with people bowing at your feet. I wish I were more like you. Nah, the respect comes from people knowing I can be just like that because you're an example.
It sounds like you're saying that there's an emptiness to the things that we desire, the things that we covet. And when I say we, I'm thinking about men, or I'm thinking about your experience.
Mm-hmm. Very empty.
Despite this emptiness, whether you have felt it or if you have not, there seems to be still a continued chase for it. Like almost an insatiable desire to have money,
Mm-hmm.
to have power, to have respect from everyone. Why did you still continue to pursue these things? I know you eventually stopped, but why was that hunger there? I'm trying to get to the root of it.
Yeah, I guess that was still prevalent or that pursuit was still prevalent because, in a sense, going back and forth with getting too much responsibility and then too scared to be viewed as not being able to handle it. I think once I got to a certain point, the chase and the thrill was always still there because it felt like I accomplished something. Like my happiness lied in other people's adoration for me. So it was almost like I was trying to please everybody else. And it's, I guess it makes me think of this quote or statement that one of my friends made years ago when it's a bunch of husbands. We used to come together and just have guys' night, cigars, scotch, or whatever it was. But he said it with a straight face and was just like, yeah, I mean, a man ain't supposed to be happy. I mean, you're just supposed to do what you got to do and make sure everything else around you is working, your kids are happy, and your wife is happy. And I remember just sitting there kind of like looking around the room, waiting to see if I can make eye contact with anybody. And I remember just sitting there and I was like, that's some bullshit. And that was my response, where it's like, damn, you ain't supposed to ever be happy? Nah, man, it's God provides that. So I say that to say, chasing that money, power, respect, yeah, it's all tied to a man feeling appreciated about something, whether it's at work, whether it's by your wife, but it's all tied to that money and what money can buy.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I've heard pushback more recently than not on the phrase, happy wife, happy life, because it completely dismisses, the existence of a man's emotions, and
Right.
that his sole purpose is to, ensure that everything that is an extension or connected to him is good, and he is that resource. And more folks are talking about that, like, yeah, no, let's not. And I just didn't consider how depressing, I guess,
Right.
that can be. So then what do you believe then is the core of success for a man, for Emory?
Well, I think success starts with being at peace with yourself, because then everything else is clear. Your vision is more sharp. So you understand the difference between your own wants and your purpose. It's okay to have both. Just don't leave one behind. So the more refined version of Emory starts with being at peace and understanding myself, but before I try and understand anything and anyone else.
How do you, people say that a lot, people say, peace, like peace is supreme.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if a lot of us know how to get to peace. I don't know if a man is listening to your story and he agrees with you, he aligns with you, and he's like, cool, I get it, I want peace. But how do you get to that peace when you're wrestling with some of those things you mentioned, when you're wrestling with being a provider, or that is how you are defined as being a provider, and maybe you lost that ability to provide, or when you were affirmed at work for closing the deal quick, or you were the highest earner, for the longest, and all of that kind of goes away.
Yeah.
It was this is a churchy cameo coming out. It was built on sinking sand, So how do you begin? What does that path look like towards peace?
It starts with literally anything that makes you cringe about yourself. You should probably focus on that. Certain insecurities, and really making yourself uncomfortable. So being more, I guess, looking for answers. So it could start with, for a man, it could start with, go back and talk to your mother, your father, your parents, or whoever raised you, and ask anything that you see in yourself right now. So for instance, hey, Mom, Dad, did I have a temper when I was a child? They may say yes, they may say no. That gives you the opportunity to kind of like look at that dash in between, whatever that time is, and kind of like, I wonder why I react to certain situations this way. And kind of, it's almost like working backwards. So if I automatically snap when something is said or done to me, why do I react that way or automatically display anger? I remember as a kid, uncles, older cousins, after they whooped my ass, they would tell me not to cry. But you just beat me up in front of all my friends, but I'm not supposed to cry, I'm supposed to be tough. Maybe that might be the root of why I automatically just pop off without saying anything. I don't know. Like that's for me, as far as like trying to backtrack and really focus on certain insecurities, because it's like when you look at things that you lost, and that's why I say my relationships, because I've always had a temper.
So you mentioned peace. What else in terms of defining success, or was that it?
Peace and whatever your own definition is. You don't have to be compared to a man that runs a whole company. If you don't want to run a company, then don't feel like you need to. If you want to literally run your one business and you the only employee, hey, do it. You don't, I guess I guess success is defined by what you comparing yourself to. You should only be comparing yourself to yourself. Were you better than you were yesterday? Cool, you're successful because you're growing, you're evolving.
So somebody's going to push back on this. Be like, nope, I believe none of what you're saying is true. They may not say it like that, but they have some hesitancies. You know, they even may have some fear or don't believe that this is how men should show up, should function. They still believe in the very almost robotic nature of men and the almost.
And that's why they cheat with creatives. But yeah, go
ahead. See.
You want a robotic dude on paper, so you have a structured, good life, but you out creeping for sure.
Always. So it's gonna be somebody that's gonna push back. What do you other than it's gonna be an affair? Somebody's gonna cheat. What do you have to say to them? Because I think
somebody that wants to cheat.
No. No. I'm talking about the person who's going to push back, like the dude who's like, no, I don't need to be emotional. I don't need to show my emotions. I'm good. Like,
okay.
My life is good. I'm providing for my wife, or I'm providing for my girl, or I'm providing for my kids. Like, we good. I may not be at my happiest, but we're good. Like, I it's work for my daddy. It's work for my granddaddy. It's work for everybody in my family to keep these emotions in check and within myself. I'm good. What would your response be? Would you have a response?
If a cat had to, if he had to say it in that way or with that much like gumption, like, you don't believe nothing you talking about right now, dog. Like you selling me on and you trying to sell yourself on it. But again, that may be that man's walk. And that may be what he's accepted, but he definitely is thinking another way as far as how he wants things to go. It's cool. Like, you holding it down. All the men have done it in your family and they've held it down, but are you really doing what you want to do in life? Or are you just scared? Like, are you using that as, hey, this is how it's always been done and I'm keeping on a tradition? Or are you just scared? Like, that sounds fear-driven to me. You know, it's like you're scared to be the one that didn't hold it all together. I guess in your family's definition, or whatever he has as his definition as far as being a man, like, I just think that's bullshit. Like, that flat out. Like, if you want to play tough, cool. That shit gonna be exposed eventually. Just hope that you keep everything together. I hope you don't get to this point and you juggling all this stuff and taking care of all these people and holding it down. And then when you crumble, hopefully it don't affect everybody around you as well. Because there's going to come a time where you got to face yourself as a man. Yeah.
Emory, that's all I got. Like, listen, when I tell you your answers are complete, I don't have anything else. Like, that's legit. That's all I have. I am good. But no, I do appreciate you being very transparent, very open.
For sure.
On the Good Girl podcast. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Here I go again, girls. What's my weakness, man? Okay, then y'all said it with me, didn't you? You said it with me. I know you said it with me. These past two podcasts, we've had men on. Men have been coming through. And it's kind of like a teaser because we have something great coming up. And so we're going to have a live conversation with men and women around dating, a fruitful conversation. And it stems around something I shared on social media. And it's, while men are dating, women are looking for husbands. And so we kind of want to unpack that. We want to talk about how can we respect and love one another, especially as we're navigating this dating process. And Jay Hall, who was on the podcast last week, his confession was Confessions of F-Boy. He'll be a part of that conversation. Emory, who you just heard, will be a part of that conversation, and so will Kellen Brooks. He's been on the podcast before as well. I'm gonna see if I can pull a confession out of him, bring Kellen on. And it'll also be myself and then Rika and Carla. Ain't you? You know? They're going to be on the podcast too. So make sure you are connected with us so you can find out and get that notification when we decide to go live, so you can see the flyer, so you can make sure you're tuned in, so we can get your questions, so we can get your perspectives. Right now it is scheduled for April 28th. Y'all done forgot the time. I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so if that time is wrong, stay connected and I'll correct it on the next podcast. But stay connected so you can tune in live with us. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the Good Girl Podcast. And as always, I hope you continue to believe in the good.